There are so many young people in the world who are introvert, who think often before they actually take any action, before they actually kind of speak up in front of others. So there is that kind of hesitation which might come across as a lack of confidence, but actually thinking more before you speak up, that is actually a quality which you can leverage to do things like.
Welcome to Low to Grow, the podcast transforming life's toughest moments into opportunity for growth. I'm Annie, a Forbes Under 30 technology founder whose entrepreneurship journey ran parallel to a mental health awakening. In every episode, I sit down with inspiring individuals and delve into how they manage to turn their personal or professional challenges into opportunities for growth. If you're facing uncertainty in your life, feeling down, or simply need a kick of inspiration to keep moving forward, this is your space for the honest and uplifting conversations that you will want to hear. Hit follow so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. Today on Low to Grow, we're joined by someone whose story is as humbling as it is inspiring. Dr. Joyjit Chatterjee was once a quiet, shy kid, often underestimated by classmates and adults. He was even told that he lacks what it takes to survive in the real world. But through personal patience, inner resilience, and a quiet determination, Joyjit proved that being an introvert is actually a superpower rather than a weakness. Now, Joyjit is a Forbes Under 30 honoree in manufacturing and industry, also working as a lead data scientist at EPAM, and is a global speaker on AI and sustainability. He has worked on smart factories across continents, earned international recognition for his research, and also shared stages with Fortune 500 leaders, all the while staying grounded. Today is a conversation about the power of patience, listening deeply, and just letting your work speak louder than your voice ever could. Joyjit, I am delighted to have you here on Low to Grow. Who do you think will benefit the most from listening to our conversation today?
There are so many young people in the world who kind of are introvert, who kind of think often before they actually take any action, before they actually kind of speak up in front of others. So there is that kind of hesitation which might come across as a lack of confidence, but actually it's like you are just trying to be humble, if you are trying to be grounded, and if you are trying to give others the stage before you kind of jump in and make your views kind of evident. I think that's a lot of young people these days, they would understand this, that it really helps to understand that being introvert, thinking more before you actually take any steps further, before you speak up, that is actually a quality which you can leverage to do things like research, do things like innovation. So how young professionals can actually transition from the society which might treat it as a lack of confidence to actually something, as you mentioned, like a superpower which will actually help you transition and grow in your career. So yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. I am very excited to delve deeper into that with you. Let's start at the beginning then. So, Joyjit, you've spoken about being shy and introverted when you were a child. How do you feel that those early experiences actually shaped the way that you approach communication and leadership in your work today?
I would say, like during my childhood, because that's where most of our life is shaped, right? When we are kids, that's where the beginning of our life is shaped. I was very shy, like really, really shy, really quiet. I would hesitate to even ask simple things in front of teachers and to speak up when I maybe was struggling to understand something on stuff like that. So I wouldn't really be that kind of outgoing in terms of my personality. So that was something that was by nature only, like it wasn't something that I had kind of learned or anything. Obviously it was something that my personal nature was always like that. I used to speak whenever I felt like this is like the right moment, these are the right people, like a comfort zone, right? I had a particular comfort zone. Maybe it might be my parents, maybe some best friends whom I would be most comfortable in speaking to, but not really to strangers, not really to new people, students, other classmates, especially the ones who were more outgoing. They would mock me and they would tell me this nature, it won't help you in your future career, it won't help you in your life, because really if you don't speak up, if you can't like put in your views, or if you don't ask questions, then you will struggle to grow in your life. It came across as something that was more destructive, like it would actually hamper, and it could lead you to depression, it could lead you to anxiety and stuff like that. So that was kind of like the moment that made me go into the low point of my life, during childhood, when I realized that okay, like society views introspection and quietness as a weakness rather than something that is just coming across from our nature, which we can't really change when we are kids.
Do you feel that there was a turning point where you actually realized that your naturally quiet nature was actually an advantage and a strength that you have?
Yes. So I would say that once I moved to university, that was the point when I realized that there is a bigger picture behind this nature, which means that I have got certain skills which some other people might not have in terms of giving others the opportunity to speak up rather than being the loudest person in the room. It makes me understand things deeper, and I can go into the intricacies, into the details which other people cannot. So that was where I got really really interested into research right from my undergrad, right? So as soon as I moved into uni in my undergrad, I kind of published quite a few research papers, which is quite rare for undergrad students. And that got me interested in participating in conferences and giving presentations, talks, stuff like that. And obviously, that led to the PhD and then even more upliftment as a researcher, as a scientist. So, yeah, I think that low point in it itself, it became like the strength when I realized that okay, this is something that could be a trait of a scientist, growing up in their life.
That's so interesting. And I remember you actually told me when you were a child, other adults told your parents, or rather, they asked your parents, how will you be able to survive in the real world? Do you remember as a child when you heard that, how you actually felt?
Oh yeah, it was terrible. It felt like I couldn't do anything literally for days. That thing was in my mind for several days. Like I even like struggled to eat honestly. Like if someone tells you that, right? Like when especially when you are a kid, when you don't know how to tackle these things, any negative perception that comes across from not just other children, other students, but even teachers, right? I think the sad thing is even teachers thought that okay, this is something that would be a negative thing in Joyjit. But fortunately, my parents were quite supportive. My grandfather, who is no more, but he was he was very much like me. I think so maybe it comes from genetics as well. He was also a writer, author. Like he used to edit books. He used to write stuff and stuff like that. So I think like that quality of being a writer, being a researcher, and all of that, it comes from genetics. And kind of my family was quite understanding that okay, maybe Joy's grandfather was also quite quiet, and like him during his all his life, they gave me the opportunity to not take that as a negative thing, but rather take that as an opportunity to work on myself. Maybe this is something that I can work on, and I can start to speak to strangers. I can start to collaborate with other people during my education journey and stuff like that. So yeah, the parents helped me a lot in recognizing this as something that I could actually improve.
Hmm. Based on your experience then, Joyjit, as someone who was a quiet child, if some of our listeners out there have young children and they notice that maybe one or two of their children tend to be more on the shy side, so similar to how you were when you were younger, how would you advise the parents then to help their children to grow out of that shyness or to really take ownership of that shyness?
I would say that definitely don't push the children to completely change their nature. That would be the very first advice for the parents, that let them be their authentic self. There is nothing wrong with being shy. There is nothing wrong with being an introvert. So it is actually something which they can leverage as their biggest superpower, as their biggest quality as they continue to grow in their life. What could be improved is maybe yes, speak at the right moment, like instead of being completely quiet all the time, which I realize that you need to speak at the right time, right? Otherwise people will take you for granted. So speak at the right moment, the right opportunity, whenever you see like okay, this is the right point when I need to jump in, then jump in. But otherwise give others the space also, give others the opportunity to speak up first before you kind of jump in to that. So I would say that let them be their real self, let them be authentic, but kind of inform them and help them to become more outgoing by maybe encouraging them to participate in, like events, encouraging them to go out in competitions, be it poetry, be it singing, and all of that. So hobbies, I think they help a lot. I used to play guitar and all when I was, growing up. That helped me a lot to come out in front of the public, right, and increase my public perception in terms of being someone who is kind of more interactive with the public and the society in general. So yeah, encourage them to do whatever hobbies your children are interested in.
Joyjit, I know that you were selected for the Forbes Under 30 list in manufacturing and industry. Could you share with us a bit more about your journey there?
What took me into Forbes Under 30 is definitely my research. So it started with my PhD at the University of Hull, which was in AI for the renewables industry with like wind farm operators and organizations like the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult in the UK to develop AI algorithms that can perform explainable predictive maintenance. So not just like highly accurate maintenance, but also like you can get like transparency and accuracy both in your decisions. I used variety of concepts ranging from causal inference to natural language generation to knowledge graphs to bring trust and confidence into the AI models, which is something the industry, especially as of today, it's very much looking forward to. No one wants to use black box AI models. They want trust and confidence in your decision making. So that research got quite some attention. It was published in leading journals, well cited. After my PhD, I continued my research trajectory in explainable AI. I worked at Reckitt, which is one of the leading consumer goods companies, which makes Dettol, Lysol, and all those products. So I worked there and I actually applied the same explainable AI foundations into the work in the factories of the future, labs of the future, how we can reduce waste in the factories, how we can improve or optimize the shelf life of products that they make in R&D and those kind of areas. It kind of got the attention of Forbes and um, like I think that's where it led to, like the manufacturing and industry category. And what really helped, I think, to get that attention was my participation in several conferences, writing several research papers in leading journals, even organizing workshops and social events at leading AI conferences like ICLR, NeurIPS, and those kinds of things. So that really helped to, bring together like industry plus academia plus public sector. Like everyone could see that okay, there is some guy who is working on AI that connects to sustainability, that connects to explainability.
Joyjit, for some of our listeners who might be just starting to understand, to learn about what AI is, what does black box AI mean? And also, how would you explain what explainable AI is to someone who is completely new to this area?
In very simple terms, I would say that everyone is using like chat gpt right now. Everyone knows of it as AI, but behind the scenes it's using neural networks, and neural networks are very complex, like machine learning models, actually deep learning models, which work very much like how your human brain functions. So they are based on the operations of the human brains. The analogy is like that, but they are kind of algorithms or models which can make highly accurate decisions. But as of today, it's practically infeasible to understand the workings of how these large models work or operate. That's like the black box behind this. So you can use chat gpt, you can type in a prompt and you can get a response. You also can get the reasoning in the latest models that are out there. You can use o3 and stuff like that to get the reasoning, but that is something that the model doesn't really understand. The text that goes into the model, the data that goes into the model only sees it as a bunch of numbers. It is just tokens for the model, and it doesn't really understand the things in the same sense as a human does. So that's like the black box. And in the industry, for example, the wind industry, like I was talking about in my PhD, you would have data from wind turbine sensors, which could lead to decisions on faults, right? You could use that data to build predictive models that can tell you that in the next 24 hours, the gearbox of the wind turbine is going to fail. But what actually leads to that message, like what is making the model think that in next 24 hours the gearbox would fail, is where explainable AI comes into play. That is where techniques you could use to decipher that these are the most important parameters from my wind turbine sensors which actually contribute to the fault. And same goes for factories. I can predict with an AI model that the product that I'm making right now, it is going to have more waste produced in the next year. But what actually leads to that waste, what is the root causes of that waste, and how I can actually go ahead and make changes at the ground level in my factory so that I am minimizing the waste and maximizing the profits and revenue for the business. So that's where explainability comes in, that's where causality comes in, and you actually don't just make predictions, but you can get actionable insights out of the AI. In the Gen AI age, it's quite important to use these models, to make sure we use these models in the trustworthy and responsible manner.
In your opinion, Joyjit, what are some of the current misconceptions or myths about AI that really, really annoys you?
One of the biggest misconceptions is that Gen AI is all AI. Gen AI is such a buzzword in which billions of dollars of investments are being poured in. As a VC, you will see so many varieties of Gen AI products that have been released into the market, and which makes a lot of the people, especially at the senior levels, right? Like the VPs and the C level leaders, they might not know that Gen AI is not something that can accomplish everything that we need to change in our business. So the hype and the buzzword that has been created around Gen AI, it's like it has created the biggest misconception that Gen AI can solve every single problem that we have in the business. To be honest, in my experience, most of the problems that we face in everyday life is something that we don't even need Gen AI for. How the R&D operates, how the supply chain operates, how the logistics operates, how the finance operates, different business functions, they actually have either structured or unstructured data, which you can use to build traditional machine learning models or even statistical models and apply data science on top of it. And then where Gen AI could help the most is when you have to build that human interface to any predictive model to create like a conversational layer or to create like an interactive question answering system. That's where it could be quite powerful. But if you want to do something trustworthy and you can't like really use an LLM to do predictive maintenance in a factory, which would be very, very risky, and you might just get more false alarms and misdetections than actually saving money by using AI.
What is the area of focus for your research or your work right now?
I'm quite focused in using AI for different real world use cases in the connected lab space, like in the labs of the future, how we can use AI to optimize the new product development process. So, whenever you are making new products, then you are trying to ensure that the quality of the products is the highest, it is safe, it is efficacious. You can leverage a lot of data that comes from your historical laboratories, the data that comes from formulators and analysts who make all these new products, which can be used as a knowledge pool to really do something impactful. And it could help you simulate new scenarios, new products, that okay, I'm making a new product with these active ingredients, what would be the impact if I change this, if I change my container, if I change my sample from a tablet to a capsule and stuff like that. That is one of the areas. Plus I am also quite heavily involved these days in grounding AI models into domain specific knowledge. Quite important in the Gen AI age because we cannot really use a foundational model like GPT-4 to understand the context of our own business, of our own industrial specific use cases. Grounding it on knowledge by using knowledge graph. I am quite interested these days in creating my own knowledge graphs, for example, for different use cases. I can model a wind turbine as a knowledge graph, as a system with different subcomponents, with different alarms and different connections between these alarms to the subcomponents and things like that. Then I can connect my knowledge graph to an LLM, which will give that LLM the historical context or the knowledge that, okay, this is my domain specific knowledge or the foundations which the LLM should refer to whenever it is making any decisions. And that's where agentic AI, again, a big buzzword, comes into play. What I am kind of doing right now is trying to connect it all to traditional ML plus knowledge graphs so that we build models that are like safe and like I was telling, explainable. So any decisions I get from an LLM, I can actually attribute it to the responses I have in my knowledge graph, so that I know that, okay, there is actual enterprise data that tells that this is the way to resolve the fault in a wind turbine, or this is the way to optimize the incorporation of vitamin C in a new tablet that I'm making.
I'm going to ask you to briefly explain what some key terms are. So, could you explain to our listeners who might not be that familiar with AI what foundational models are? Could you also explain why it's necessary to ground AI frameworks? And lastly, could you also explain what AI agents are?
Foundational models are basically your large models that are trained with almost anything and everything from the internet, right? So GPT that we all use, it's a foundation model which is built on huge amounts of data from across the internet, which might even include Reddit, which might include Wikipedia and stuff like that. So it has got a lot of knowledge, but it is not something that is specifically going to have your competitive advantage, because it doesn't know your data, it doesn't know your problem statements. So that's like a foundational model for you. Why we need to ground these models in our own data? It's because of hallucinations. So as you know, chat gpt we all use a lot of the time. There is a huge possibility it will hallucinate, it will make plausible, real sounding responses which might actually be completely inaccurate and infactual. It is tolerable when we are using it to generate images or do some fun stuff, experimental stuff, but when we use it at the corporate level, at the enterprise level, it comes with huge implications. There is EU AI Act, and there is regulations that come in usage of AI models like FDA and EMA and stuff like that. There is like huge regulations that are coming up these days, and huge penalties for businesses if they do not adhere to these regulations. So that's why it's quite important to use your own data to ground these models. Maybe it would be a lot less powerful. It cannot do everything in this world, but it can do something very well. That is where the power of grounding your model comes into play. And agentic AI basically aims to make sure that LLMs are something that can work autonomously. So instead of us having to go in and type in a question every time and get stuff accomplished every time with a prompt, LLMs can work autonomously when they are agentic. So they can actually approach your data, they can approach your systems, they can actually work 24/7. They can keep an eye on any tickets that might be raised in your company, any issues that are going on, and stuff like that. So you could have an HR agent that looks into HR tickets. You can have a R&D agent that is going to look at your R&D data from the labs, and it is going to keep an eye or audit your R&D data to make sure that all the quality control, all the quality assurance and tests like that, they are being done properly. That's the power of agent, like the autonomous nature and the ability to work without human intervention or with minimum human intervention. It's quite important to realize that these things, if you leave it without any human intervention at all, then there is a huge possibility that it will lead to very, very, very costly failures or scenarios for you. So it's quite important to make sure that the agents, whenever you are using it for something quite critical, for example, you are using it to give refunds to a customer, then it's important that you keep an eye and make sure that people cannot misuse your AI agent and make it do things that you do not intend to have it do in front of them.
Okay, understood. In a way, it sounds like foundational models. For example, if we take ChatGPT, that's probably something that a lot of people are quite familiar with. It's a type of conversant AI because it's a chat box. You message it and it messages you back. It's been trained on a foundational model, which means that it's been trained on basically most things that's publicly available out there. So it can be compared to a worker being trained in a huge variety of different techniques but not really specializing in anything. So this worker, it can do work, but if you ask it to create a very specialized product, it will really struggle because maybe the skills that it needed to have hasn't been focused yet. And this is where your work, such as what you were doing in grounding these models, come in. So it's really actually teaching this AI more specialized, more focused, more relevant skills for the particular job that you want it to do. And then finally, with the AI agents, is actually turning AI models or turning AIs into almost like individual workers that know what they need to do and they can just do it. And you don't really need to have 24/7 oversight or to have as much hand holding as possible. Would you say that's like a fair comparison?
Yeah, definitely. So it's basically kind of ensuring that you go from like just models that work with a developer or a data scientist, kind of always keeping an eye on those, to models that would be more accessible or democratized, right? So I think AI agents is really helping to democratize these models and bring it into use by people who are not like coders traditionally, or not from the technical background.
Outside of work, what do you think one of the most exciting potential applications of AI tools into humans' day to day lives could be?
AI should be usable in scenarios where it can really reduce the amount of things that we humans have to do, not really doing everything for us. Because I feel that honestly, if every AI is doing everything for us, from like writing an email to reading an email to writing a presentation to even reading a presentation, then no one will do anything. That's not the future we as humans would want, or for our future generations. But what we really want is definitely cases where AI is really, really great at to help people who might be having diseases, and performing diagnosis, and supporting doctors, the medical specialist, in reaching out quick decisions, quicker turnaround times in terms of like giving the patients their future prognosis and diagnosis and stuff like that. It is really adept at drilling down into the data. There is so much data around the world, which we have from our daily life as well, which could be used to create so many different useful things, especially from the multimodal modality bit. Like it can help them to understand things that are going on around the world. If some person is blind, then they can actually use the AI to interpret what is happening in their surroundings, and it would be a completely game changing thing. It would be a new life for them. That is where AI could be very helpful. Things like Excel, and you're building a spreadsheet and stuff like that, and you kind of have to do lots of calculations and create lots of formulas and things like that, in which AI could really help you. It could assist you to create these formulas in a shorter time. It could help you to actually focus on the analytics rather than the developments. It would help you to decipher the data. You can perform deep research on the data set and use it to extract like meaningful insights for your company.
How do you think that someone who is socially anxious might be able to use AI tools to help them better go about their daily life?
A great example would be things like the advanced voice mode that you have got in ChatGPT these days. You can literally ask it, right, to speak to me like a teacher, speak to me like a boss in my company, speak to me like stranger and stuff like that. So you can actually use it to simulate a person, a human who you have never met before. For an introvert, for a shy person, that is perfect for knowing beforehand what might it be like to interact with such a person, what might be it like to interact with the CEO of a company, what might it be like to interact with a potential investor, and stuff like that. So it's really useful, especially I think for young professionals, for young people who haven't seen life in and out. We are very much at the beginning of our career. We are very much at the beginning of our journey. We haven't seen like the struggles that come later on in life and that we learn from experiences. So I think with the AI we can actually understand that, okay, like how is it really like to be in the shoes of a CEO? How is it really like to like be in the shoes of maybe someone who is kind of like older, and you have like children, and how do you interact with your children and stuff like that. So how do I experience that without even having reached that time or that age? So I think that is where AI could really help the introvert people to become like more extrovert. And from my experience, as you start to speak to people, right, you kind of start to become more outgoing. There is no way it cannot happen. Speak every day to the advanced voice mode just for 15 minutes every day, and I think literally in 1 month you will be much more extrovert and much more outgoing.
That's a very creative way to use the existing tools. And as you were speaking, I was actually thinking, yes, that is so right. It's a way for us, I guess, to also be able to more deeply emphasize with people whose life experiences might be very different to our own. And I think that's definitely a great way to garner more understanding and also more patience, especially when we have to, for example, work in a very multicultural group or perhaps work with a group of people who are just naturally by default and by their own experience, very, very different from us. What would you say to young people who might feel like they don't fit the mold, whatever that may be?
Believe in yourself, trust your skills, trust your ability to change the world. Like literally every one person, every single person in this planet, they have some unique skills that we are born with, which you can use to change the world. Like every single thing that you do in your everyday life, that can actually help you to create an impact that goes bigger, that can actually speak more than words, like actions speak louder than words. So you can actually write your own story every single day. So that is what I would encourage young people, that you might be introvert, you might not fit the expectations of the society or every single person in the society. It doesn't really mean that is a weakness in you. It is something that could be like a positive quality, a positive trait in you. You just have to leverage that. Whatever is your weakness, identify how you can turn that into your biggest superpower. If it is introversion, maybe generally maybe you are a good writer, maybe you might be a good thinker. So how you can become a scientist, how you can potentially win the Nobel Prize, right? Like have big dreams. I think like I never imagined, like even for one day in my life, that I will be in Forbes Under 30, so it was like have big dreams and kind of never give up in your life. That's the biggest encouragement to young people. Who knows what you might become one day, right? So just keep on going and let your work speak for itself, and it will reach the right people at the right time. And then that's where you can speak up, and like you can share your views with the right people, and you might be speaking to some of the biggest people, biggest leaders in the planet, the best leaders in the world. They are the ones who give space to their subordinates, right? So they let their subordinates or their colleagues speak first, and they are very humble, they are very grounded. I think this is like a very much a unique trait which could be turning you into a leader as you grow in your life.
For yourself, what kind of legacy do you want to be able to leave behind?
What I want to demonstrate to young people is that you can actually shine in the big world that we have around us by actually staying as you are. What I try to do is kind of jump in at the right moment where I feel it will help the company the most, it will help maybe the society the most, for other people to see that okay, like coming from a shy child, you can actually reach this position in life. You can actually be like Forbes Under 30. That's just the beginning. So there is so much more that could be done. If I can become a CEO or something someday of a big company, like I think that would be something I would love to accomplish. But yeah, let's see where life takes us, right?
Wonderful. Well, I will have to re interview you in 5 years' time and see just how much further you have gone. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Joyjit. Let me finish by asking you our podcast staple, which is what is one thing that you think will allow more people to have better mental health?
Because we talked a lot about AI today. AI, I feel, could be useful, it could be harmful as well when it comes to mental health. So if you are just completely using AI for every single thing in your life and you are losing human interaction, that's not good. It could lead you to depression, it could lead you to like just be doing everything with AI. But where AI could be helpful is it could help with your mental health as well. So for example, imagine a lot of people, especially the older people, they might live alone. In today's life, there is not much social interaction between everyone. Like everyone is busy in their everyday life, and they don't get to spend that much time with their friends and family. So that's where AI could be very helpful. You have the companion at the fly of a button. You just click on that button, and then you have an AI that can speak to you, and it can just be your best friend. It can be your philosopher. It can help you to act like your grandchildren, for example, and it can give you that happiness which you might not be experiencing right now because you are away from your friends and family. In a nutshell, use AI in the ways which gives you happiness rather than in the ways which makes life monotonous for you. Stay confident, stay grounded and humble, and keep on working on life, like keep on doing things that you love to do. If you like to write papers, if write that. If you like to write books, do that. If you are good in sports, then do so, but do something that can kind of will give you a competitive advantage, and that will set you apart in society. And be 50 years from now, people will remember your name, like that, okay, this person was the contributor for so and so thing in the society, and he made this change in the society, which the world would always remember, and your name would be carved in history.
Wow, what a wonderful way to end our conversation. Joyjit, thank you so much for taking the time to share your personal journey, the comments that you received as a child, which actually inspired you to keep working and stay true to who you are. And also, thank you for educating us about some of the key terms within AI. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, nice speaking to you as well. Cheers. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Low to Grow podcast. If it resonated with you, leave a review and hit follow to help more people to find important conversations. Keep growing and see you next time.